Impulses and Perspectives, the DIKT Expert Talk hosted by Nikolai Behr.
Hello and welcome to the first GLCA Expert Talk. Our guest today is Andreas Kleinschmidt, a former journalist, company spokesman for Siemens, financial analyst, trainer, coach, and communications consultant. Hello, Andreas.
Hi, Nikolai. How are you doing?
Fine. So, Andreas, you're based in London. How are the times nowadays in London? Are you able to walk around in the city?
You are. We are formally in lockdown. Just people don't seem to care so much. So, interestingly, many of the rules are more limiting than in other European countries, but still you see a lot more people on the street. So, one thing is rule, the other is compliance.
Okay. So you work internationally as a coach for board members, for high executives, for communications experts. Let's talk a little bit on coaching nowadays. Is there a difference between coaching now in COVID-19 times and coaching beforehand?
Yes, big difference. Of course, you usually don't find your client in the same room. You do it on VC. And I think this is something that will stay because it's convenient, it's quick. Clients can more flexibly fit it into their schedule, and mostly it works very well. In fact, I have some clients who told me, you know what? Can you also switch off the camera? Somehow just having a voice makes me open up more, but of course that's personal taste.
So if we look a little bit into the future, you think this remote coaching, this online working will go on. So what does that mean for the future of coaching?
I'm not sure whether the question where we physically sit or stand when we work defines the future of coaching. I think there are much bigger trends that have a bigger influence on the future of coaching. And the biggest one, of course, is technology. The technology that makes it possible for you and me, Nikolai, right now to have this chat over VC, over video call, but also artificial intelligence. We see it already in skill building, where coaching has a bit of an overlap with training. For example, I do a lot of training, coaching for public speaking, and we already see apps that help you make pauses like Obama, that measure your speed and certain aspects. So artificial intelligence is coming to coaching and will have a big effect. And the other area, big area, is of course how coaching as an industry is maturing. It's coming of age, so around 30 years that we've been speaking about coaching in the way we do today. But still, it's not a very formalized industry, and you don't need a formal certificate as you would if you wanted to be, for example, a therapist in many countries. So the industry is maturing, and there are a couple of important trends in that as well.
So what for you is good coaching?
Coaching is good when the client reaches an important objective. An objective that's important enough to invest the time, to invest the money. Ideally, it's measurable, or at least the client has ways of feeling very clearly in his or her own subjective manner that it has been achieved. So it has to be effective and ideally also efficient, because if you make a small measurable progress in some area, but you invest 100 hours of coaching, that's not what it is about. So it really is about outcomes for clients.
So you teach a lot of board members, of CEOs, of CFOs. What does it take to be a good and successful CEO in these times?
Maybe ask the CEOs that are successful, and they can tell from their own perspective. What is different? What do I see has changed? I think there is a lot more focus on behaviors and how their mindset manifests in the world, partly because we see more of our CEOs. They're on social media, they're on LinkedIn, they're more visible. And that means it gets ever harder to get away with, say, pretense of false values. You have to live them. And that is, in a way, a very good thing, because there's less of a gap between what I would pretend and what my behavior actually speaks to. It's good for the company. It's good for the individual, him or herself. So if you want, it's an overstretched term, but there needs to be more authenticity, because when your behavior is too far away from what you preach, it's very, very visible today. And that's a good thing.
Do you think every CEO should be active, him or herself, on social media, or is that still the work of the press officers?
Well, you'd have to check in with the CEOs. I certainly see a mix here, and I get it. It's a busy lifestyle. What I see and what I think is really good when there's a healthy mix, because in the end, it has to be the voice of the CEO. That's what makes it authentic. And that's also what makes a CEO think more about his or her image and how he or she would communicate to the world. So if you work with a CEO and prepare his or her social media image, pull your CEO in as much as you can so that you get an authentic outcome.
So nowadays, we don't differentiate between internal and external communication. So if a CEO is very much into social media, is that an important factor in motivation of his own team?
In a way, it's a great thing, because you don't think about like, oh, how do I differentiate the message? In a way, it seeps out and they reinforce one another. Think of an employee of a large multinational company, and then he or she will, of course, get messaging through internal channels, the intranet page, internal social media channels. But 2 minutes later, he or she might just find something that the CEO has published on LinkedIn, and these messages have to fit together. And the good news is, if we get the same message from several channels, it's more likely to stick. So that's a good development, I think.
So when you look to your clients, what is what they really want from you? What do they want to achieve when going to a coach?
It can be very, very different. I would do executive coaching, which is purely around challenging topics in their life. How can I design a new board? How do I cope with different expectations towards my business from stakeholders? It can also be on the side of public speaking, where it's about skills, but the skills we want to build in public speaking often has to do with how we see ourselves in the world. So there can be a much deeper level, but in the most blunt way, I'd answer your question. They want an issue to go away or an opportunity to materialize. Or to come back to your first question, what's good coaching? It is coaching that gives the client a strong outcome that was worth the time and money. And that outcome, it depends on the objectives of the client. So it can be very, very different.
So nowadays, if you go in the internet, you see a lot of offers for coaching, and you see also nowadays much more offerings, I have the impression, of being a coach, of being trained as a coach. What do you think of this development?
I've seen the same, and it makes me wary, right? If it's easier to make money by training people to be a coach than finding your own coaching clients, it might mean either you're a really bad coach, in which case I think maybe you shouldn't train other people to become a coach, or the market might be moving towards a point of saturation, and maybe a bit of both. And it makes sense. Think of it. Coaching has had its start a couple of decades in. Now it's become almost super fashionable to be a coach. And a lot of people, as they, for example, move out of corporate jobs, like, oh, what could I do with my, yes, coaching, there's purpose. And some of them are fantastic coaches. And for some people, coaching isn't what they should do. But at the moment, there is no proper regulation around coaching. So anybody can be a coach, anybody can start a coaching school. And on the one hand, it's great because it makes it easy to try this out. And probably we've got great coaches that way that cut their teeth and found their way. At the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a moment of crisis in coaching over the next couple of years. It has happened in similar professions where it's about personal growth. Think therapy, psychotherapy. There have been big scandals, for example, in the United Kingdom, where I live right now, many years back, where people with just very shoddy credentials could make their way into the profession, and there was not very solid vetting. So the standards were raised, the bar was raised. And I would expect that in coaching, a certain degree of professionalization, which then will link back to other trends. Happy to talk you through that. We'll see digitalization change the shape of coaching. So it will become more industrialized, more democratic in a way. But I'll tell you more if you're really interested in that.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, isn't it a good sign that it's more usual nowadays that you go to a coach, that you ask for coaching? I mean, in former times, it was maybe, especially in Germany, just for the board members. Now it's going down the hierarchy, and even a starting manager can have his coach for this or that topic. I think that's a good sign, isn't it?
Yes, I'm sure anybody who's just at very much starting level as an individual contributor, or even people out of work, can have coaches, because they're very, very, very different price points and offerings in the market. And I think this differentiation is going to be even stronger in the future. And here's why. One was technology. Remember, we see more AI, we see VC, all of this will reduce cost for the entry level towards coaching. So it's a bit like with airlines in terms of flying economy. There can be really cheap tickets. You'll get very little human touch. Somebody will at some point put a tray with food on your plate if it's long haul, or not even that. So we might see an entry segment of coaching which is completely automated. And that doesn't mean it has to be bad. Top, I would expect you will have a segment where there's a lot of automation in the offering, and then you get once in a while a check-in with a human coach made from flesh and blood, once a week, once a month, whatever you choose. And then if you want equivalent of flying business class, you'll have a coaching relationship as you would have had over the last couple of decades in coaching. That's going to stay, but we will think of it as a much more premium product once the cheaper technology-driven parts are in the market. And of course, whoever wants to fly first class with your star coach to get what you want, when you want, in the format you want, of course, that will be there too. And that's good news in a way, because it means a form of democratization. 30 years ago, flying somewhere else for holidays was very exclusive. Now everybody can do it. I think something similar is happening with coaching.
So will AI be the Ryanair of coaching in the next years?
Interesting. Yeah, could happen. Why not?
Do you know any examples already where coaching is supported by AI?
More in the skills coaching area. For example, for public speaking, you can have an app track the speed, how many pauses you make, and that's valuable data. And clients can work with just that. But of course, if you have a human that holds you accountable, that puts context around that data, it can be even more powerful. And we'll see a lot more of that. But there's this other trend as well. When we industrialize a cottage industry, the dynamics change. Probably there will be consolidation. So fewer players in the market overall that might hire just college graduates and give them a crash course in their methodology and just rent them out over VC. The question here is, overall, is that going to make the world a richer place? Is it going to contribute to growth? Because finally, people who would not have had coaching will get coaching of some quality, or is it going to degrade product? Is it going to degrade the quality of coaching overall? We'll see, but I think the good news is, like in almost every industry, there's always a niche for really, really good service. And especially in coaching, for genuine care about outcomes, but also care about the human behind these outcomes.
And in the end, there will be always a big market for quality. And another question concerning the online coaching and online training. Do you have to design the training sessions differently, doing it online compared to a one-on-one or one-to-many session?
Yes, you have to do it differently. And I really like it. I really like it because it's a bit more challenging. Take the example of a group training for presence or public speaking. What you need to do. In the past, you had people locked into a room, so it was hard for them to run away without a good excuse. Now, very likely at any point in time that any of the participants in a workshop are either doing emails or cheekily watching a little bit of TikTok on the side, or actually doing their footnails. So the expectation that you genuinely excite them, create the sense of presence in the workshop situation, it's an even higher bar, which means there's more preparation. So I love to check in with participants before a workshop, understand what their objectives are, and then make it truly about them. And condense the learning into a shorter time frame, like make it 90 minutes, 2 hours, rather than a full day. And from everything we know from empirical psychology and the psychology of learning, more touch points, shorter touch points, much better for learning. So I really love that we're changing the way we deliver training.
So we're living in exciting times. And it's exciting for us as coaches, but for the whole industry. Andreas, thank you very much for your insights into coaching, into the future of coaching. And I think we will talk soon about how it really develops in the next times.
Nikolai, thank you so much. It was absolutely fun to speak to you.
Great talking to you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
If you would like to watch all of our new episodes, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.